Let us know we're coming in. Yes, I see us now.
Oh,
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay.
great.
If they can give us a comment.
And we have quite a few people on tonight.
All right. I like it.
He's here, and Michelle and Karen, and quite a few people. So we're going to jump right on it because we want to honor everybody's time. It's 7:01, and I am excited tonight. It's our first male for the summit. So welcome, Shiraz.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to give just a brief overview. Guys, I want to tell you a little bit of my story is the fact that I met Shiraz at a company event, and he had so much energy on him. He just attracted me to him, and we just had the best conversation when we first met. And we've been in touch on and off ever since. And I've been stalking him, and I think he's been stalking me in our travels and stuff because we both love to travel. As you can see in the description, Shiraz was served our country for over 22 years. So thank you, sir, for that.
Thank you.
And works with a commercial airline. And so who better to talk about leadership in a crisis? So I'm going to turn it right over to you, Shiraz. And why don't you just give us a little background about yourself?
All right. Holly, thank you. Thank you so much for putting on this summit. This has been great. It's an agenda the other day, and that was just fascinating stuff. So what could be more necessary now, than the opportunities to strengthen our mind and our hearts, hope, love, and inspiration. Those are all ways we can do that. So thank you again for really initiating this and inviting me to this. So
great to have you.
Thank you. So as for me, well, I was just that kid standing on the airport fence, watching planes take off and land. I remember as a 5-year-old kid wondering when it would be my turn. And, finally, when I was old enough, I set my sights on the Air Force Academy. A brief stint in the Army, which truly set the foundation for true leadership. Then I went to the Air Force Academy and graduated a few years later. I received a pilot training slot after that. So off to pilot training and finally getting to live out my dreams, which was truly exciting. So that was exciting. And then after about 13 years of flying for the Air Force, I'd been honored to fly 10 tours overseas, flying a few different aircraft in combat. It was interesting. See, I was the first class to graduate the Air Force Academy after 9/11. So all I've known is war, and the leadership lessons that I learned came straight from the battlefield a lot of the times. That's where all the crisis all around us, and you continuously need to take care of your troops at a variety of different levels and in different environments. But about 5 years ago, I decided, it was my turn to move on. So I left active duty, joined the reserves, and I got hired with a major US airline, as you said. So a little tough time right now. And at that same time, I got married. I had a good looking son coming soon after that, right before the year point, to add to the mix within a year. So talk about really starting a new life in every sort of fashion. And in all of that, I threw something else on top of it as well. So during that time, the entrepreneurial spirit really bit me. And I had a few businesses over the years, photography and travel had just started a year before that, which is, as you said, where I met you. Mm-hmm. But then a few months ago, I really found my true calling, in coaching and inspiring others. And it came as I was preparing to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro out in Africa last year. I remember one day after about mile 8 of hiking, literally uphill most of it, that I realized I had a life full of different unusual adventures, constant crisis, changes, stories. I started to realize those stories and experiences can really help and inspire others. So I got to get them out there. So like hiking alongside people as they build their best life. A few months ago, I joined the John Maxwell team, and I'm a certified success coach now, as you said, and recently became a speaker and a coach, trained in the DISC method as well. And I just can't wait to keep adding value to folks as we focus and weather pretty much storms like today that are going all around us.
Yeah. Well, that's, and I've seen that in you. And so let's talk a little bit about, leading during a crisis. First of all, why don't you define crisis?
That's a good question, because that frames everything for us. everyone defines crisis differently. Some people see a flat tire as a crisis, but for me, truly, crises are a matter of perspective. Here's a great example. New Year's Eve, just this past year, around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, I was flying from New York City to Bogota, Colombia. So it comes down over the coast and then it goes out over the coast and you're out over the water. So we're about 100 miles, 100 or 200 miles off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, at 38,000 feet. The night was absolutely beautiful. The moon was out, the stars, it was just absolutely spectacular. And then it happened. My windshield shattered right in front of me. I told you I'm a pilot. I'm a pilot of a commercial airliner with 150 plus people behind me. Windshield shatters. Now it's just the outer pane. There are two panes and the outer pane shattered. Looks like a spider web almost. It's still there, but hey, we're in a situation here. So main thing is though, solve the problem, get on the ground. Is that a crisis though? You know, some people would say, yeah, that's a crisis. What are you talking about, man? But, you know, my perspective was never why us. It's always let's solve the problem and get on the ground safely. And that's what we really need to train our brains. We need to train our brains to show that crisis is really an opportunity to step up. You know, I'm not even sure on a daily basis outside of this, I use the word crisis or chaos, as some people say. You know, this should tell you that it truly is a matter of perspective, especially for a leader in any group or situation, or even if you're the leader of your own family. So my mentor, John Maxwell, he defines crisis as, now get this is a loaded statement here. He says it's an intense time of difficulty requiring a decision that will be a turning point. Man, I'm going to say that one more time, actually. It's an intense time of difficulty requiring a decision that will be a turning point. That's amazing material, right?
Yeah.
You just have to frame your difficulty and recognize the turning point when your decision will reverse the crisis or whatever you want to call it, because it will. All crises happen in cycles. You know, look at this right now. We think this is a crisis, what we're going through with this coronavirus. I'm not belittling what is happening at all. Please realize that. But we've seen stuff like this before. It's the nature of humanity. You know, from the Spanish flu to 9/11 to the stock market crashing in 2008, this too will pass. Actually, you know, since we're talking about the stock market crashing, let's put it into perspective. What can the stock market teach us right now? It's gone down quite a bit recently, right? We've all seen that. When a stock market crashes, what does everyone want to do? They think they found the bottom and they want to increase their value at the bottom and buy everything. So when it goes up and everyone makes money.
Mhm.
So we recognize that value at that time, but what are we all doing to add value to our time right now? See, you have a unique opportunity to be at home. Now, I know you're taking out some of your commute time. So if you were listening to audiobooks before, some of that time's gone, but you have the time to add value to your life. You have the time to read books, to organize your thoughts. You have the time to meet with your team more frequently on stuff like Zoom right now, which is absolutely great. You're on here tonight. So I actually applaud you here for that. And I thank you for coming on here tonight with us. Here's something else the stock market teaches us. It goes in cycles. What goes up, it's got to come down. And what goes down, it's got to come back up. And just like life, everything's going to go in cycles. You know, and then here's the main thing. Always, the stock market will always go up in the long run. So if you think it's going down, that's just because your perspective is this small. Widen it out. What does the stock market do over time? It goes up. So just increase your perspective for a longer term. Biggest thing in dealing with a crisis truly is your perspective on it. So whether you're the leader or you're being led, you know, I actually believe that no matter where you are in an organization, you can actually lead. But no matter where you are in that organization, just increase your perspective on it all.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, reframing is what, you know, I was talking about it the other day. So and you're talking about leadership. So let's move on to leadership. So what is leadership? First of all, let's hit that.
That is so simple. And John Maxwell, once again, he's like the guru on leadership. This guy's written over 100 books, 30 million copies sold around the world. If anyone knows leadership, it's John Maxwell. He says leadership is simply influence. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep it that simple.
That's simple. I love it. I love it. So do you think leaders are born or are they made? What is your perspective on that?
That's great. That's great. I definitely don't think leaders are born that way. It's taught, it's definitely experienced, and over time, it's refined. It's something that can be learned, and we're in prime time right now to learn to step up. And I hope if you're watching this right now, then you realize it's your time. Go out there, be intentional, make those mistakes, because it can't get any worse. But then make sure you learn from those mistakes and you grow.
Okay. Well, I've seen you do this, and I know that you lead teams. So how can a leader best help their people and help them grow seemingly in a crisis? How can they do that? How do you see that?
This is real good, because honestly, I've seen that during these times of high stress is when your true leaders emerge. I mean, who can tell me out there right now, show of hands, if you can you tell me who the 13th president of the United States was? I doubt it, because things were fine. Things were growing in our country at that time. Can you tell me who the president in the Civil War was? Absolutely, of course you can. It's those times of crises, leaders truly emerge. So like you out there watching this, when a problem arises, like you, I become laser focused on the problem. Now, news gets put aside, and only what's relevant really filters in. Heck, for everyone on this tonight, thank you for being on here tonight instead of watching the news. I'm going to say this really quick and really direct. Disconnect from the news, or whatever you want to call it these days. Only really a distraction, and it really adds to a lot of negative thinking going on right now. As a leader, your people will do and react exactly like you do in times of crisis. I agree with John again when he says the hardest person to lead is yourself. But this is truly a simple task you can do to start climbing back up, and with your team. Now, this goes to being intentional. As a leader, especially during these times like this, you need to be intentional about everything in your life. Time seemingly accelerates. And if you aren't intentional, you miss the opportunities that need to be seized. This means waking up, even at normal times. Get dressed like you're going to work, even if you're staying at home. I was up 6 a.m. again this morning to keep my home routine going. Bring the normalcy back into your life. Now, with all that, step back or step up so you can see above the crowds. You need to be with your people. We're all indeed in this together, but you need to have a higher perspective with your team. So make sure you see and know what's really important to your organization and even your family's survival, and take care of those needs first. But be intentional about it every day.
Yeah, intentional is so important, and laser focused. So, a lot of people are coming to this to walk away with some tools. So do you have any techniques that you use specifically to help our audience tonight on how you do this? Because you've been trained.
I do actually. And there's a concept here that I've been teaching for a little bit, but I've created, and it's actually called Delta V. And it's truly helped a lot of people, especially recently. So Delta V is an acronym. It stands for something. So D is defeating doubt. First of all, you must get rid of the noise, the rumors, the negativeness, the news that we were talking about that may be surrounding your team. E is for elevate expectations. Now, this is your chance to set your bar high. We'll come out of this. We'll be stronger for it. So set the bar up there and develop a plan of action for your team to reach those goals. L is for leverage learning. So this is your time to evaluate all your resources that you and your team have and leverage the team to benefit everyone. Like Zoom meetings and such, like what we're doing right now. T is for transformational techniques. Now, what a great time to put new systems in place. You know, techniques that can be leveraged from your team working remotely. If you have an opportunity to implement a new system to capture the bounce, if they work while you're being separated from your team, they're only going to get better when you rejoin. So A is for amplifying your attitude. My dad growing up told me attitude is everything. And that's one of the biggest lessons that has stuck with me over the years is attitude truly is everything. So A is amplifying your attitude. People follow strength. They follow clarity. This is your time to truly have both. You were meant to be here. You are here for a purpose. As a leader in the downtimes, this is your time. You know, they say the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. This is your time. If you doubt it, the world is in one of the largest crises it's ever been. This is your time. Finally, V, velocity for victory. Now, this is your chance for massive, immediate action. Tony Robbins says it. Brendan Burchard says it. All of these guys say massive, immediate action. Tomorrow is Friday, sure, but that doesn't mean you can't start tonight or tomorrow. That way your team is ready to shift into gear next week as you lay a foundation right now, tonight, or tomorrow morning. These are also opportunities you may seek to accelerate the growth on the bounce. So find those opportunities and leverage them to gain more strength when we come out of this.
Holy cow, I love that. Delta V. Wow, that was great. So what else you got, Strauss?
So, you know, leadership during a crisis, especially, is really about perspective you bring to the table. You know, anyone can truly lead when times are good, but the leaders emerge now when times are tough and when others are lacking that clarity. It's our job to provide that clarity as leaders. Now, remember that. So I told you last year I was climbing Kilimanjaro. When I was climbing that magnificent mountain in Africa, you know, I actually got food poisoning around 24 hours before we were taking off for the summit. Now that was at 15,000 feet with still another 4,300 feet to go. I'd been climbing 7 days, no issues. I'd been training for this moment for months. Being that sick though, didn't even allow me to sleep leading up to leaving base camp at midnight that night. The doubts started creeping in. How should I push myself? Was a helicopter going to have to pick me up? Hopefully not. Would I even see the summit? But, you know, with the steps I talked about earlier in Delta V, I was able to truly put one foot in front of the other in a methodical way, pull myself up and step foot on that mountain and the summit about 9 hours later after climbing. So here's your mountain, guys. Here's your time. You have the techniques, you have the skill, you have the belief. It's time to just put one foot in front of the other and start moving back up that mountain. So are you up for the challenge?
Oh,
No.
lay it down, the challenge for us.
Yes.
I love it. And now,
Well, I just wanted to thank you again, truly, for your listeners for joining us today. What could be more important, once again, than the hope, love, and inspiration? And I hope we were able to provide that for people a little bit today.
well, I certainly have chills, and I encourage people that are watching us, if they don't follow Shiraz, he gives a new story every day. You're a great storyteller. This is one of the things that I've learned in NLP is that one of the best ways, there's a Milton method of hypnosis that he hypnotizes people literally by just telling stories. Talk about mesmerizing. And seriously, your stories are phenomenal. So I encourage the audience to look at your great stories of inspiration and hope. Not all is lost. I don't see any questions that we had one question.
I see one. I see one in the Zoom.
Yeah. And
Interesting question.
do you see it?
I do. I see. How do you know that the coronavirus will pass? Well, I talked about it. Everything will pass. Everything works in cycles. It's the nature of life. It's the nature of the stock markets. It's the nature of everything. The virus, if you want to get scientific here, it's a living organism. So I know it'll pass. It will have a life cycle. And are we going to outlive it? Yes. Because the human race is the most powerful thing that's ever known.
Yeah.
We have to.
We're
It will.
resilient. Sometimes I know we don't feel like we're resilient, but you look at, if you start facing things like look for the good news on, I actually Google good news on coronavirus. And that's how I find out about how there's been no more cases in the last 2 days in China, how the Apple stores are opening up. You know, there's, it's in waves. And so if you feel that doom, like Shiraz says, all this will pass. And look at what you want. Jack Canfield always says, focus on what you want, not what you don't want, so that it will grow. So I'm just really, really happy. I don't see any more questions. Does anybody have any questions for Shiraz? And I'm looking at Facebook too.
I'll come
Um,
fix it as well.
I don't see any questions.
I don't either.
Okay, guys. Well, listen, this is going to be up permanently in this group. If you know of people who have not seen this, that you know that are going to benefit from it, and I don't know how anybody couldn't benefit from what you just told us. So please, please come back in here and share it and watch it again. If you didn't take notes, you need to go back in and take notes. Delta V, I love it. I love it. That's one for my notes for sure. I took some good notes tonight. So thank you so much. We appreciate you, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. You have a great night.
All right. Good night, everybody.